Here we go. This is our warm-up, and it says to solve. When I am solving, what should my answer look like? X equals. So I'm trying to get it to say X equals something. What's the first thing I need to do? Subtract 4 from both sides. So I have 3 square root 2x minus 5 equals 24. Oh, that's an ugly 4. What's my next step? Divide by 3. Very good. And then divide both sides by 3. So I have 2x minus 5 equals 8. I have a square root, so I square both sides. Parentheses squared. Parentheses squared. If you don't use parentheses today, you're going to get a lot of stuff wrong. Okay? What happens when I square a square root? It cancels out. So all I have left is my 2x minus 5. What does it equal? 64. Then I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So 2x will equal 69. When I divide by 2, does 69 divide by 2? So I leave it. X equals 69 over 2. Do not box it. Why can I not box it? I have to go back and check it. So I have 3 square root 2. Instead of x, I now have 69 divided by 2. Minus 5 plus 4. What am I hoping this equals? 28. I'm hoping that this equals 28. So I have 3 square roots. What is 2 times 69 divided by 2? It's 69. Minus 5 plus 4. So I have 3 square roots of 64 plus 4. What is the square root of 64? Is 8. 3 times 8 is 24. And 24 plus 4 is 28. Is that what I wanted it to answer? So is it true or false? So what if I ask you these 2 questions? What is my solution? What would you tell me my solution is? X equals 69 over 2. What if I ask you what's my extraneous solution? What would you tell me? There is none. How do I know something is extraneous? It would be false when I plug it in. Very good. Okay. That is topic 3. That is on your quiz Monday. You also have to understand how to solve all of this to do what we're doing today. So in your spiral, at the top of your paper, we're going to have Unit 8, Topic 4. We're going to do 3 problems together. Okay? Unit 8. Topic 4, which is still inverse. Inverse is what we did yesterday, but today we are doing inverse equations, meaning we're doing it algebraically. So it's not on a graph today, it's using algebra. And in case you want to write it down again, your quiz is on Monday. Your test is on Wednesday, okay? Your quiz is on Monday. Do not be absent for it because there's not much time to make it up. All right, the first thing I should think of when I see the word inverse, what should my brain start thinking right away to do what? Not opposite, I don't like that word. Flip what? No, I'm not flipping any. Thank you. I am switching X and Y. That's what I should think of the minute I think of the word inverse or see the word inverse, to switch my X and Y. Whether it's an equation, whether it's a graph, whether it's a table, switch X and Y, okay? So my directions might say something like find the inverse equation. Find the inverse equation. And since it's telling me to find an inverse equation, my answer should look like an equation. Y equals something, okay? So my first one will say y equals the square root of x minus 1 plus 3. Just like yesterday, it's silly if you don't go write the words and draw the cute little graphs next to it. I'm starting as a square root. A square root looks like half of a parabola. What's the only thing the square root can turn into? A quadratic, which is a parabola. How do I make my inverse look exactly like my original? What do I need to do? I have to cross half of it out, and I heard the word domain restriction. Very good. Remember, you cannot touch the original. I have to make my inverse look like the original, okay? So I have to put a restriction, a stop, a hold on my entire graph. So I should know my answer will look like a quadratic. That's what my answer should look like. So let's start my problem. Find the inverse. The first thing I do is switch x and y. So x equals the square root of y minus 1 plus 3. We're always working outside in when solving. What do I get rid of first? Subtract 3 from both sides. So I have x minus 3 equals the square root of y minus 1. What do I get rid of next? The square root. How do I get rid of a square root? Parentheses squared. If you don't have those parentheses, it's all wrong, okay? When I square a square root, all that's left is what's inside, y minus 1. What do I get rid of next? Yes, because there was no square root to cross it out, right? So I have to keep it. I have to get rid of this 1, so I'm going to add 1. Listen carefully. Those parentheses work like a barrier. Nothing can come in and nothing can go out. So even though I'm adding 1, it cannot go in those parentheses. I can't change those numbers. The plus 1 is just going to go right outside my parentheses. And it equals y. How do you tell me something's an inverse? What does that y have to have on it? A little bitty negative 1. Okay. Did this equation need a domain restriction? Yes, that's why we drew this up here. Because my quadratic has to look like a quadratic equation, but it has to look like a square root. So we have to put a domain restriction, meaning we have to stop my graph from being drawn the entire way. Questions? That's my inverse equation. Okay, let's go do another one. Y equals parentheses x plus 4 squared minus 5. So again, go to the side and let's start with our little bitty pictures. I'm starting as a quadratic. What does a quadratic have to turn into? A square root, which is just half. How do I make half of a parabola look like a whole parabola? I have to add the negative side. I have to have a positive side and a negative side. That's going to be important in a minute when I ask your question at the end, okay? Have to have a positive side and a negative side to make it look like an entire parabola. So let's do the math. I'm going to switch. So it's going to say x equals parentheses y plus 4 squared minus 5. What am I going to do first? Add 5. So I have x plus 5 equals y plus 4 squared. How do I get rid of a quadratic? What do I have to turn it into? A square root. So to get rid of my quadratic, I have to turn it into a square root. And if I do the square root on one side, I have to do the square root on the other side. So I have the square root of x plus 5 equals what's left on the right side. What's going to be left? Y plus 4. Very good. Okay. I'm going to subtract 4. Same rules apply. Can that 4 go inside the house? It has to stay outside. So I have the square root of x plus 5 minus 4 is on the outside equals y with an inverse. This is wrong, so pay attention. Yes, that tells me it's an inverse. That's all the negative one tells me, okay? But yes, it has to have it. Why is this wrong? Because this is just the positive side of my graph. What else did we say my square root has to have? A negative side. So I have to have a positive and a negative side of a square root to make it look like a quadratic. A positive side and a negative side to make this graph look like a quadratic. Okay? Questions? We got one last one to try. It's going to get a little bit harder. F of x equals 3 square roots x minus 2 plus 7. Before I do any math, draw your pictures. What am I starting out as? As square roots, which looks like half a parabola. What does a square root turn into? A quadratic. How do I make my quadratic look like a square root? I have to have my domain restriction, meaning I can only draw part of it. Domain restriction. What does f of x really mean? So if that confuses you, cross it out and put the letter y. That's perfectly fine. My first step, switch x and y. So x equals 3 square root y minus 2 plus 7. What do I get rid of first? So subtract 7 to both sides. X minus 7 equals 3 square root of y minus 2. What's my next step? Divide by 3. Watch, you have two choices. Two choices. I'm going to rewrite this over here so you can see what both choices are. Okay? I can divide by 3 and divide by 3. That's perfectly fine. So this would say x minus 7 divided by 3 equals the square root of y minus 2. Okay? Dividing by 3 is the same thing as multiplying by 1/3. So I can write it like this if I wanted to. And here's why I tell you this. Because every multiple choice, every SAT, ACT, TSI, probably your QSC that'll be in March, this is what it will look like. It will not be a big fraction, okay? This is what most of them will look like. I will take either answer on your test in your quiz, but when you take a big test for somebody else, this is what it's going to look like, okay? But it's your choice, whichever one makes more sense to you. Now, what's the next thing I have to get rid of? The square root. How do I get rid of a square root? Big parentheses squared. Big parentheses squared. So I have x minus 7 divided by 3 squared equals what's left over on the right side? Y minus 2. What's my last step? Add 2 to both sides. Where does that 2 go? Inside or outside? Outside. So I have x minus 3 squared plus 2 equals y. How do you tell me it's an inverse? A negative 1. Does this problem need a plus minus in front? Why not? It is a quadratic. It's not a square root. I didn't add anything. I actually had to have a domain restriction, okay? If you wanted it over here, it's the same thing. You would just be a double parenthesis squared. So I'll finish this one over here. It would look like this, double parenthesis squared. You would add your 2 on the outside to get your inverse. These are the exact same answer. Okay? Questions? It is very, very repetitive. If you are not drawing this, I think you're silly because that answers a lot of questions. So here's the thing. If you are in my classroom, you got this short sheet of paper. Yes, I've got that one. This one, you got this short paper yesterday. This is what you should be working on. Finishing the graphs. If you finish the graphs, this is what I just taught you, the inverse equation. That is what you need to be filling out. So this paper can be finished in its entirety today. If you are online yesterday in Schoology, you should have started Unit 8, Topic 4, under the Practice folder. This is worksheet number 2. Worksheet number 2. When you finish with this worksheet, I have one last one to complete. That's actually a little bit different and combines the two things we've learned, okay? Today is also Thursday, which means what's required during Bearcat Dig? Are you allowed to step into the arena? No, it will be an automatic 0. Do not step into the arena.